I'm Amelia Yahya and I'll be guiding you through the next series of our policy discussion. On our third discussion, let us all talk about climate resilience urban planning. As the world's cities continue to rapidly grow, the COVID-19 pandemic has evidently raised great awareness on how vital the importance of a good urban infrastructure is. This is our opportunity to advance the city's development. Our capital city, Jakarta, the home to more than 10 million people and Indonesia's business and economic center, is indeed no stranger to urban challenges. The need to embrace climate change adaptation, mitigation actions, and tackling air pollution, while recognizing the complexity of rapidly growing urban areas and the uncertainty associated with climate change, is dire. Therefore, the Jakarta Provincial Government has confirmed its commitment to continue reducing vehicle exhaust gas emissions. One of the very good ways is by implementing low emission zone or LEZ around the Old Town area in West Jakarta, where there will be reduced mobility within the area to reduce air pollution caused by motor vehicle emissions. To improve air quality in Jakarta, emission tests are also required for motor vehicles aged over 3 years.
Since 8 February 2021, the DKI Jakarta Provincial Government has officially implemented a low-emission zone in the Old Town area, West Jakarta. In practice, only pedestrians, cyclists, public transportation, and special low-emission sticker vehicles are allowed to pass around the area. The implementation of this laws is expected to create a better and pollution-free environment in accordance with the program of the province of DKI Jakarta to reduce emissions in the capital city up to 26%. In addition to the Old Town area, the DKI government also plans to add pollution-free areas. Among others are Blora Road in Central Jakarta, Kemang area in South Jakarta, and Lake Sunter in North Jakarta. These areas were chosen because they possess pedestrian paths and good public transportation networks, thus suitable for a low-emission area or less. Furthermore, the DKI Jakarta Provincial Government also requires emission tests for motor vehicles aged over 3 years. This is based on the Governor Regulation number 66 of 2020. The goal is to minimize the effects of greenhouse gases in the capital generated from motor vehicle engines. By controlling vehicle gas emission, air quality in Jakarta is expected to be improved. Governor of DKI Jakarta, Anies Baswedan, is targeting Jakarta can be emission-free in 2050.
And to lead our discussion, we have Mr. Arief Wijaya, the Program Director of World Resources Institute Indonesia, as our moderator. So, Bapak Arief, we're so happy to have you here. As we all know that WRI is an independent think tank organization, a great advocate that continues to improve people's life while also ensuring that nature can thrive. So I'm sure that you're very excited to be moderating this session. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Amelia, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arief Wijaya, and I'm very much welcome to moderate this session. Today's session, that we will have 3 speakers. So, like Amelia has already explained before, this is policy discussions on climate resilient urban planning as part of a Festival Kolaborasi Jakarta event. I would like to introduce our first speaker. We have Bapak Afan Adriansyah Idris, Assistant to the Provincial Secretary for Development and Environment, DKI Jakarta Province. Mr. Afan will explain Jakarta's 3 main strategies concerning climate resilient and regional low carbon development plan. And then we have Mr. Roland de Castro, the second speaker, President of EnPraxis and President of International Metropolitan Fellowship. He is an avid advocate of inclusive land and enterprise development. One of his current work is advising the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office under UN Habitat in embedding sustainability unit and design of a central park in New Clark City, the Philippines. And the last speaker is Mr. Johan Verlinde, Program Manager Rotterdam Climate Adaptation Planning. Mr. Verlinde is now led the Rotterdam Weatherwise program in preparing the city for severe climate hazards like heavy rainfall, flooding, heat, and drought. I'll give the first opportunity to Bapak Afan Adriansyah Idris to give the presentation. The floor is yours, Pak. Please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Arief. First of all, thank you for inviting us to join this program this afternoon. And next, I would like to inform you that currently DKI Jakarta Province established the Governor Decree number 90/2021, known as Low Carbon Development Plan. Here, the document consists of mitigation and also adaptation actions, and also its internalization to the planning development mechanism. So it's a little bit different with the document at the previous one. So here we mix between mitigation and adaptation actions. And this document is comply with the Paris Agreement, and this is the reflection of our contribution, of DKI Jakarta contribution to the achievement of the Indonesia's NDC. Here we commit from DKI to reduce the GHG emission until 30% by 2030 and ambitiously reduce direct GHG emission to 50%. The question is how to get the target, to achieve the target. I would like to highlight only two issues that related with the problem of Jakarta. First, about flooding, especially at the coastal part of Jakarta. And the second is about the traffic jam, which occurred not only Jakarta but also its surrounding, Depok, Tangerang, Bekasi, Bogor, Puncak, and Cianjur. First, about the flooding at the coastal area. The same condition also occur at many other cities like Tokyo and Manila. They have also the same condition because the sea water level rises. And at the same time, we also have the condition, the land subsidence at the northern part of the Jakarta, especially as the western part. Average per year, the land subsidence in Jakarta almost 7.5 centimeters. Sorry. So here, from the data, we can see that also other cities have the same condition. Incheon have the severe land subsidence, more than 30 centimeters per year. To tackle this problem, we, Jakarta, we have three strategies, Mr. Arief. First, we construct for coastal dike. Here, we collaborate with the central government, with the Ministry of Public Works, and we also control for groundwater extraction. And at the same time, we expand for coverage of drinking water pipe in the whole Jakarta. Now, the existing total of coverage of drinking water pipe, almost 62%. And the second problem that we face in Jakarta is about traffic jam. We know that Jakarta not only the capital of Indonesia, but it's also the center of trade and also services in Indonesia. That's why we give the big contribution for national PDB, around 17%. And if we, together with our neighborhood, Depok, Tangerang, Bogor, Bekasi, Puncak, and Cianjur, total contribution for our national GDP around 24%. That's why, no wonder, we have so many activities here. That's why so many trips here. Daily, maybe almost reach 100 million trips per day. The trips dominated by the private vehicle. That's why you can see many traffic jam everywhere around Jabodetabek, Punjur. That's why we trying to tackle the problem, and we state our target in our special planning of DKI Jakarta 2030. Here we state that at 2030, we will switching the private vehicle users, move to public transport users, from 20% move to 60%. How? We construct for many infrastructures. Maybe all of the audience know that the MRT phase 1 from Lebak Bulus to Bundaran HI has been operated. And now we continue for the phase 2 until Jakarta Kota and Ancol. And also we provide with the LRT at the Gading area, and also the central government construct the LRT from Cibubur, Bekasi, direct to Setiabudi. And not only rail base, we provide also with the BRT system. We have totally 13 corridors in Jakarta. And also the feeder, we complete with the feeder. And also we provide the Jack Linko, the microbus in the whole Jakarta to give an easy access to whole citizen from their own home to go to the nearest bus station or nearest station. And also we construct for many pedestrians and also bicycle lane. Totally for bicycle lane, we have now around 96 kilometers. I think this is a good effort from us how to reach the target 60% people from private vehicle users move to public transport users. And we also provide not only the infrastructures like that, we will provide also the third space in many parts of Jakarta. Okay, next I would like to inform you also about the new scheme of at Jakarta that introduced by the governor, Mr. Anies Baswedan. Here, we realized that if we would like to accelerate the development of Jakarta, it's impossible if we do it only by ourselves, only by the government. So we have to invite all stakeholders and shake hands with all stakeholders to develop Jakarta. In the pandemic, this scheme has been implemented and success. We can combat the pandemic success, and we get so many aid from many stakeholders: medicine, face mask, oxygen, and etc. And this scheme also implemented for us to get some excavator to help to dredging our channel drainage system in Jakarta. I think this scheme is good and could accelerate the development. I think not only in Jakarta, but also in other places, even nationwide or also worldwide. and I think it's good to be implemented. Okay, I think that's enough for my presentation, Mr. Arief. Thank you.
Thank you, Afan. I think that is very exciting and interesting, presentation that you have just conveyed, because I guess there are already a lot of initiatives, conducted by the government of Jakarta, trying to also, create the climate resilient urban planning and development. Yeah. Next, we will move to the next speaker. The next speaker is Mr. Mark Roland de Castro. Mr. Mark Roland de Castro is the president of International Metropolitan Fellowship. Mark, I think you have 8 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. A warm afternoon from the Philippines, here in Metro Manila. So, first of all, congratulations to Jakarta. That is really a very impressive a plan presented by Mr. Afan. So, is my presentation showing? So I would like to focus on, in terms of my presentation, is the urgency, and then where are we in terms of climate action, and then I'd like to cite the case of the Philippines. Metro Manila is almost the size of Jakarta, and in terms of population, Metro Manila is just a bit denser than Jakarta. So we might learn a lot from Jakarta, from what Mr. Afan presented. And then I show ways forward. So the urgency of these photos say a lot of things about why is it important for us to really move forward. The Philippines has been devastated by typhoons. Well known is the strongest one is the Typhoon Haiyan that hit us last 2013, and among other typhoons that has really impacted a lot of people here in the Philippines. I'm sure this is not unique to our situation. It's also similar to a lot of countries worldwide. Next, please. So let me go into the urgency and where are we right now. So the Climate Change Performance Index cites the study of where current states are in terms of climate change action. So it's a document that was published since 2005, basically looks into 60 countries where a combined GHG emissions of 92%. So it looks at the different categories of GHG emissions, renewable energy, energy use, and climate policy. So in terms of the Paris Agreement, so states are urged to submit NDCs, focus on 2030 targets. So NDCs are nationally determined contributions. So at the end of October of 2021, 114 countries in the EU submitted new NDCs covering 61% of global emissions. So currently, the Philippines sits around at rank 23, and not far is also Indonesia. So even the ranking, we are very close. In general, the overall performance is medium. So I think this can be attested to what Mr. Afan has presented to the efforts of Jakarta in terms of moving forward. Next, please. So what is needed? I think this is the more important part. I think the steps that Jakarta is taking now in terms of collaboration really reflects this need. So I highlight 3 things: integrated, coherent policies on climate change and urban development, multi-stakeholder commitment, and then multi-level action. So I will look into these 3 very important actions in the next few slides, relating it to the case of the Philippines, where we are at right now in terms of climate action. Next, please. So this is the framework of the Philippines currently at the national level. So in terms of integrating climate change into national policy through the National Urban Development and Housing Framework. So at the national level, we have established key principles whereby climate change and urban development are really intertwined, because we believe that cities really have a key role in terms of addressing climate change. So in terms of, we've aligned with the global SDGs, of course. The Philippines is highly committed to contributing to the climate change agenda. And then at the national level, we have established a national vision. We call it the Ambition 2040. So from here on, and we have developed the different contexts, the different drivers in terms of urban demographics, urban planning, housing, urban infrastructure economy, and urban governance. So right now, I'd like to focus on operationalization. This is very important because we are in the decade of action and implementation. So next, please. So what you see right now is how this framework has been acted on the ground. So from taking off from the urban planning and design for climate resilience, we selected the pilot city. Actually, there are 5 pilot cities that was selected in the different parts of the country. As you can see, one city is Angeles City. It is about 1/10 the size of Jakarta, but it is one of the most important cities north of the Philippines. So from there, we have assessed this climate and disaster risk situation, and then from there, developed the city adaptation strategy. And then from there, we have developed portfolio of different projects, really looking at the macro scale, the integrated approach on the different aspects where different urban systems can address climate change. And then, of course, specifically project design and development, we have looking into financing, how to actually implement these projects. Next, please. So in terms of multi-stakeholder commitment, this is where we are right now in terms of way forward. In fact, I'm currently here, and just a couple of hours ago, I was part of the expert group meeting developing this resilient and green human settlements framework, where we are now discussing how to formalize and really organize that collaboration. It cannot be a hodgepodge. It has to be strategic. So as you can see in the photo, we have initiated already involving the students, the universities, to really immerse in the climate action, and also government, private sector, starting off with a lot of discussions and key aspects of really understanding this complexity of where we are right now. So that's my last slide, and I believe there is a lot of things, actions for us to do. And we hope that we can learn from each other, Jakarta, Metro Manila, from the International Metropolitan Fellowship, where we are also looking into the complex metropolitan scale of planning, how we can break silos with different municipalities and cities. We cannot act independently or as an island, and it's really collaboration that is the key. So with that, good afternoon again from the Philippines, and hope everyone has a safe and good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. That was really interesting. Very brief presentations showing how actually you involved in the planning of the city of Manila to be more inclusive, low carbon, but also resilient to the changing climate. The next speaker will be Mr. Johan Verlinde. Mr. Johan Verlinde, you are from Rotterdam, and you also have 8 minutes to deliver your presentations. Floor is yours, Johan.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's actually early in the morning here in the Netherlands, but very nice to have me. Thank you very much for having me, and also nice to see a familiar face, Mr. Afan in the studio. Today I'm going to talk about our climate resilience program, which is called Rotterdam Weatherwise. It's an integrated program about rainfall, heat, drought, land subsidence, groundwater and flooding, and we do it together with the city. So we as a city act in the public space, but we also do it jointly together with everyone active in the city. And it's especially important for Rotterdam. We are the second biggest city in the Netherlands, home to the biggest port of Europe. And we are a delta city, so we are next to the sea and we have a river flowing through our city. Next slide, please. So as a delta city, water comes from 4 sides. So we have a river flowing to our city, sometimes high river levels where part of our city actually flood a few times a year. Then the sea, and especially with sea level rise, we see the severe effects of that happening. We have a big storm surge barrier in the west, which protects our city from that effects. Groundwater can actually be a problem, low groundwater tables, and we have old homes built on wooden poles, and it's actually quite a problem when something like that happens. Then the wooden poles rot and the houses shift. Higher groundwater tables where homes actually flood the basements, that's a problem. But precipitation is a real threat to our city. Next slide, please. Because 85% of our city is below sea level, up to -7 below sea level. On this picture, you see everything that's blue is below sea level. So our dikes protect the city for keeping the water out of the river. But when it's raining, the water falls on the other side of the dike. And we have to pump all the water out with 2,000 kilometers of sewer system, 1,100 pumping stations. Next slide, please. And years ago, at the beginning of the 20th century, Rotterdam was a water city, but then the car came into the streets. Next slide, please. And all our canals were transformed into roads because we needed to make place for the cars. Well, from a climate perspective, this is very bad because all the water that falls on this road cannot go anywhere, only to the sewage system. And with climate change, more severe weather, water will stay on the roads, we will have flooding, and also it heats up the city. So next slide, please. So we really have to adapt our city. We have to integrate climate adaptation into our urban planning, make our city climate resilient, and at the same time, more beautiful. Next slide, please. And that's something we cannot do alone because we as a city are responsible for, we can do projects in the public space. But only 40% of our city is public space and 60% is private property. So in order to make our city climate proof, we need everyone, real estate developers, the private sector, banks, insurance companies, and also, of course, the citizens. Next slide, please. So showing you some projects we do, and I think it's about scale also. And this is a big scale solution. This is actually outside of the borders of our city, because in a densely populated city, you don't have enough space to build big water storages. So you have to look even outside of your boundaries. And this is a big water retention. And at the same time, it doubles up as an Olympic rowing track. So it's also about built-in functionality. But because it really helps in the water retention capacity of our city, we invested in this, and this helps in keeping the city dry. Next slide, please. But also on a smaller scale, we do quite some maintenance projects on squares in our city, which need to improve. And why not link climate adaptation into maintenance on your squares? And that's what happened here. We have 10 of these all around our city, and these are called water plazas. So they're just an attractive public space where people can sport or do other things or relax. But when it's raining, it's used as water storage. On this one, 1.6 liters of water can be stored. It doesn't flow to the sewage system, so it reduces the stress on our drainage system. And it's only raining 5% of the time, and 95% of the time it can be used for other things. Next slide, please. But not only rain is a problem, also heat is becoming more and more a problem in our city. So we have to look at cool places where people can go to in order to cool down. So we mapped for our city the distance to cool places, and what we saw that in our city center and the neighborhoods around our city center, the distance was just too long. So next slide, please. So in the next 5 years, we going to transform big locations in our city into cool places. And this is actually a really busy roundabout in our city center, just like the Jalan Sudirman roundabout in Jakarta, I think, the busiest place of our city. But the car is going to actually going to be on a second place. And pedestrians and cyclists will have room here, and it's also a lot greener, so people can relax here and cool down. And we will do it on several locations in our city. And it's also more attractive, of course. Next slide, please. And also on a building level, and this is where we have to work together with building owners, investors, and also real estate developers, where we put it into the building codes and regulations that people actually have to store water and look at solutions to cool down the area and the building. It is one of the newest buildings in our city, and it actually has a park on top of the roof of the building. It makes the building more attractive. It stores water because of evaporation of the green. It also cools the building and the surrounding areas. And also, we developed a social cost benefit analysis tool for building owners, where they can see how beneficial it is to actually transform their current not water storing green roof into a water storing biodiverse green roofs. And we have around 15 square kilometers of flat roofs in our city, so a huge potential to use that. Next slide, please. And this was all about bigger scales, but also on a small scale, it's really important to link in with the citizens and motivate them into taking action. And because of the pandemic, we also saw that people wanted to make their own streets and their own houses and their buildings more attractive because you cannot go anywhere else, of course. So what we did is we motivated our citizens to take some of the tiles out of their next to their house out of the pavement. You are allowed to do so, and build a small facade garden there. And to encourage people even more to do so, we started a national championship tile popping and a competition between Rotterdam and Amsterdam, which of the cities and the citizens could remove the most tiles out of their city and add green to the city. And that actually ramped up, and a lot of people helped in doing so. And Rotterdam won the first national championship, which is also a good thing, of course. But it's more like a way and a funny way to motivate your citizens into taking action. And we also have subsidy programs if they want to do more on their roofs, their buildings, and their gardens. And next slide, please. And what's also important is to collaborate with other cities all around the world. So I'm very happy that this day is organized by you. Collaboration is key. We have a strong collaboration with the City of Jakarta for years and years now. We have the DUTEP, the Dutch Training and Exposure Program, where young staff of DKI Jakarta can come to Rotterdam and work with us on climate adaptation and climate resilience. And we as Rotterdam also learn from Jakarta, from other cities all around the world, because we are all innovative and building new solutions. So we can learn from each other, not copy paste, but learn and adapt and be innovative. That's really important, I think. So that was my presentation, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Johan. That's also pretty exciting. I guess hearing from you on the brief presentations related to the development of City of Rotterdam. Now I would like to move to Q&A sessions. I have actually several questions now already from the participants. I would like to come first to Pak Afan. Yeah. Well, I think you have explained about, the strategies how provincial government Jakarta, try to tackle the issues of climate change, but also to create the city becomes more resilient to the climate. And in your presentation, you mentioned about the third space. Could you explain a little bit more on that and how this third space actually related to the switching from private to public transport?
Yeah, okay, Mr. Arief. First, I would like to explain about our three strategy to tackle the flooding, especially at the coastal part of Jakarta. As I mentioned that we construct for coastal dike. We collaborate with the Ministry of Public Works, and totally we have 33 kilometers. From 33 kilometers, we from DKI handle for 22 kilometers, and the Ministry of Public Works handle for 11 kilometers. We focus at the critical point. We have some which are Kamal Muara, Muara Baru, Muara Angke, Sunda Kelapa, Ancol, and also Marunda. The height of the coastal dike around 4.8 meters. So we hope that this coastal dike will effective to tackle the problem, the effect of the sea level rises. Okay, and the second strategy is we from DKI Jakarta established the Governor Decree number 93/2021, known as groundwater extraction free zone. Through the regulation, all activities to extract the groundwater will be prohibited start from January 2023, especially for the building with more than 8 floors and the building that have more than 8,000 meters squares, especially the building located at the area that covered by drinking water pipe service. And the third strategy is expanding the coverage of drinking water pipe. Here we together with the central government now preparing for regional water treatment plants, which are Jatiluhur, Karian, Buaran 3, and etc. And we would like to increase the total coverage of our drinking water in Jakarta, now at the position 62%, up to 100% by 2030. And next, I would like to explain about the third place. Yeah, third place is important. First, it could give a pleasant experience for many people that using the BRT or the MRT or LRT, because after they arrive at the station or at the bus stop and they take a walk to their own office, they will have many pleasant experience from our third place. And second, why we create some third place in Jakarta, because we want that the citizen of that Jakarta, they have many inclusive places, not only exclusive. So here at the third place, everyone could know each other and could know each other. So I think it's a positive for every city if the people know each other, so they could get help when someone needed. Here is the example for some infrastructure of third place that I mentioned. First, about the elevated bridge, the location at the Jalan Sudirman. So if you arrive at the Istora station and you would go to Senayan or SCBD, you can use this elevated bridge. It's a nice experience, I think. And also we have the new concept of pedestrian. It's different than before. We create pedestrian now wider than before. And we use the new concept, complete street. So we provide all infrastructures from the ducting, the pedestrian, the greenery, and also the city light. And also the bicycle lanes. Now, totally in Jakarta, we have until 96 kilometers bicycle lanes. And many people use it. And if you come to Jakarta, you will see that now cyclists are everywhere. The amount increased, if we compare with maybe 2 years ago, more than 1,000%. And next, the other infrastructure of third place, we construct for many parks in Jakarta, and now we create a different concept. We combine the concept or the function between blue and green. So in the summer season, the park will full function as the open space, green space. green area. But when the rainy season coming, we will make it to double function, also as the catchment area of storm water. It also help our limited capacity of our drainage system. We have only capacity for 100 millimeter per day for our intensity. I think third space is an infrastructure that good, and I think it's better to implement also at other places in Jakarta. I think it's enough, Mr. Arief.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pak Afan. I think that's quite clear.
Yeah.
And then also, it is a clear strategy as well from the provincial government to move forward with the further development of the city. I'll go next to Mark. Mark, I have a questions for you. The question coming from the audience is, what do you think is the most appropriate and efficient policy to reduce greenhouse gases emissions? Please, Mark.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for that question. I think what Jakarta is doing in terms of developing that low carbon development plan is a good step forward. First, you have to have a plan. So with that plan comes the baseline situation where that can be the anchor for the targets, and among others, that can become the source for potential innovation. So that said, here in the Philippines, we are exploring developing loops, e-vehicle loops, to connect the different urban centers because currently, especially during the pandemic, public transport has been really a challenge for a lot of people going from one urban center. As I mentioned, the size of Metro Manila is almost the size of Jakarta. So what we'd like to be able to do is allow mobility and accessibility people coming from the far south of Metro Manila to have efficient transport and accessibility through e-vehicles or e-transport that can be useful also to reduce GHG emissions. I'm also part of the planning of one of the premier CBDs here in the Philippines, Makati City, where we are exploring developing also the parks, given the heat island effect, the challenge of air conditioning in buildings. So combining all of these strategies, really increasing the number of green buildings in Makati. I like the strategy of the third place that Mr. Afan has presented. I think that is a very unique way of framing how parks can be really exciting destination, not just a typical park, but a multi-use one. So I think accessibility, pedestrian accessibility is very key. E-vehicles, and also the reduction of air conditionings in buildings where green building movement will be very, very critical also. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. I think that's quite clear. Now I'll go to Johan. Johan, what do you think the right adaptation concept for the development in a coastal city like Jakarta, especially because Jakarta is part of Indonesia, is as a developing nation, to deal with climate change with regards to growing population density, limited land resources, and other resources that will be more limited in the future.
I think working on climate resilience, the key is to first of all have a robust system, so dikes, levees to keep the water out, a proper drainage system to pump the water out once it's there. But at the same time, the city is growing and the city is expanding. So there's also quite a threat that more concrete, more hard surfaces are entering your city. So make sure that everything that's being built in the city is being built in a climate adaptive manner. And for Rotterdam, for the Rotterdam Weather Wise program, we set the goal to 2030. And by 2030, climate adaptation needs to be a standard for everyone that has an impact on the city. So it's for us as a city that if we do a road maintenance project somewhere, that we think about, do we need all the bricks back? When someone who builds a building thinks about what kind of roof do I put on my building, but also the citizen who is doing something on his garden, that he also thinks about, can I improve my garden to store water and to cool down? So I think the key is work together with everyone in your city, because everyone has a role in this.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Johan. I think that's pretty clear. Good. So I have another question actually for you, Johan. Also from the participants. Learning from the city of Rotterdam, which sectors actually need more attention to increase the adaptation level of cities to climate change?
So what sectors in the city, sorry to understand your question correctly?
So I guess the question is more on, learning from Rotterdam, which and we are now talking about the issues of climate change, yeah, and how the people in the urban area adapt to this changing climate. Which sectors that you think Rotterdam has done to cope with this climate crisis or climate change? To make the city becomes more livable, healthy and so forth.
Well, I think two things are important in this. First of all, the real estate developers, it took us quite some time in order to make them invest in climate adaptation, because, well, they are willing to invest in solar panels and that kind of solutions because it has a return on investment, and climate adaptation usually is seen as something that costs you money, but you don't get it back. So we were really working on putting that in the building regulation, working together with real estate developers, because that's one thing. And the other is the citizens. We put a lot of effort into working with our citizens because there are a lot in your city. They know what's best for their neighborhood. So we started neighborhood dialogues with every neighborhood in our city, knowing and understanding what happens in that certain neighborhood, what we as a city can do, and how we can join forces together with the city in order to improve the neighborhood, make it more attractive, make it more safe, make it more livable, and at the same time, climate proof. And still, we have to learn a lot in order to improve the climate resilience in our city. But talking with the city and having a dialogue is key in taking the next step, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Johan. So I think now I get back to Pak Afan. Yeah. Pak Afan, do you agree that having a dialogue with multi-stakeholders will actually be useful in helping the government implementing their tasks, especially with regards to this particular topic?
Yeah, okay, Mr. Arief. Yeah, as I mentioned, that we, the government, we have very limited resources, human resources, financial resources, and also machinery resources, method, and everything. But outside of the government, the stakeholders, they have the abundant resources, especially financial resources. That's why we realize that impossible for us if we would like to accelerate the development of Jakarta, do it by ourselves. We have to invite all stakeholders and also shake hands with all stakeholders. We from Jakarta, we have the platform. We call it KSBB platform. So all citizens that who would like to join with us to share your resources, you can choose the sector that you would like to give help. I think this is a new scheme, a good scheme that very appropriate if you would like to accelerate the development at many cities, because I'm sure at other places they have the same problem, very limitation of resources, especially financial resources.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's a really good response. Yeah. So collaboration is really the key here, actually, and in many areas, especially also in developing the urban city like Jakarta. Thanks. I have second questions now coming for Mark. So the question is, which stakeholders have the most important role in increasing the city's resilience to the changing climate, and why?
Okay, thank you. That's a very interesting question. But I think to answer that, there's really no. I won't put any stakeholder above of the rest or the others. There are equal importance depending on the role each stakeholder plays, especially in terms of interest, resources, and others. But here in the Philippines, or just a local context, I think one key stakeholder that is key is the developers, because they are the ones that are actually implementing things on the ground. So influencing them is going to be very important, but at the same time, incentivizing them to follow through on climate actions will be very, very important, because they are at that phase or level where they are the ones that are, where we hit the ground running or the rubber meets the road. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Sure. Thanks, Mark. I think that's pretty clear. And true and agree with your response just now. I guess again, I've heard that before. Mark mentioned about the interesting idea coming from Jakarta government on the third space. We know that the government has actually built several third space infrastructures in Jakarta so that the people could actually gather, and communicate, and hopefully also starting the collaboration. Pak Afan, now also again get back to you. Do you have any other examples that is, the development of third space in Jakarta that is currently underway?
Yeah. One example, we have the pilot project of the park in Jakarta. The location at Tebet. People in Jakarta say known as Taman Tebet. Yeah. Taman Tebet, we will design for, they have the double function between blue and green, so they can get the function as the green area at the dry season, and at the rainy season they will be the catchment area for the storm water around Tebet. We hope that the construction will accomplish maybe not more than this year, and we hope that it will be replicated in other places in Jakarta. So not only park, but also they have the double function for blue function as the catchment area for stormwater. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Pak. I think the concept of Taman Tebet also this is also pretty exciting. Excellent example how to have more of the third space in Jakarta. I'm actually interested as well, Johan, with the idea of the cool space. because you showed in your presentations the green open space that currently Jakarta government also trying to expand the area of the green open space. Could you tell us more a little bit about, besides, let's say, regulating the local temperature, this cool space, I mean, how actually the people of Rotterdam use this? I mean, is it also kind of like, similar concept as the third space in Jakarta where people could gather and so forth, or perhaps any other purposes that the city of Rotterdam built such areas?
Yeah, we do several things. So first of all, transform big parts of the city in more green, cool areas. I showed you one of the projects with the roundabout, but we also have a big unused elevated rail track because it went below the surface and the track wasn't used anymore. So we thought, okay, do we demolish it or do we transform it into an elevated park? So next year it's going to be transformed in a 2.5 kilometer long park, elevated, so it makes the area more attractive and cools down the area. So make more parks, small parks, big parks, make it more attractive. But we also developed the cool map, so people can go there with their telephone, type in their location, and can find a cool space nearby. It can be a public space, a park, but also a library where you can find some cool places, or a museum or whatever. So really also communicate to citizens what they can do in case of a heat wave, because we are not so familiar with heat waves in the Netherlands, but it's becoming hotter and hotter and hotter every year. We don't have air conditioning in our homes, so people have to find cool places in the city. So it's not only a role about making the public space more cool, but also changing the behavior of the citizen, that they really have to find the cool places in the case of a heat wave. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Thank you, Johan. I think now we could already really see, even in the northern country like in Netherlands, the impact of a climate change really already felt by the people, especially those who are living in the urban areas. And I can imagine that even for the city of Manila, I don't know if I could come to the last questions perhaps. Mark, if you have similar example for Manila, how the city developed this third space, cool space, or I don't know how you name it there. If you could tell us briefly.
Yes, thank you for that question. There's actually an example in we call it the Fort Bonifacio development in Taguig, where there's a park there's called the Burgos Circle, where there's almost a 9th floor of water catchment that really addresses the flooding situation in the area. But at the same time, what makes it unique is there's a tree in the middle that serves as really that make people want to go there, not realizing actually that there's a huge water catchment below. So these kinds of effort have been, there are attempts to replicate this, particularly in Manila, where if you're familiar with the University Belt area here in the Manila area, where it's during rainy season, it looks like a river. So what attempt that they're trying to do is make the collaboration with the different universities because they each have their open spaces. So again, the real challenge right now is breaking silos, because of course almost all stakeholders want to protect their boundaries, their jurisdiction, and their interest. So we have to be creative. I think in Metro Manila, we have so much to do and to learn from Jakarta. I'm really interested to learn about third places. There are a lot of cases, but lots to develop. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mark. And with that, I would like to wrap up our policy discussion session. Thank you to all speakers, to Pak Afan, to Mark, and to Johan. And now we'll get back to our host, Amelia Yahaya.
Thank you
Please.
so much, Pak Arief, for excellently moderating the session. And thank you so much to all of our speakers for the great insights and messages. So everyone, do not go anywhere, because next we'll be talking about collaborative governance. So stay tuned, we'll be right back.